Thank you for watching this How to Play Mimicry, my 2023 Board Game Geek 54 card contest entry. Mimicry is a two-player tactical deduction game where we have our hidden mimics on the left and the right here. Our opponent cannot see these, and we cannot see our opponent's left and right mimic. So the goal of the game is to score points by either guessing the value of your opponent's mimics or maturing your own mimics. So to guess the value of our opponent's mimics, we use our action cards to pin clues like this. And then our opponent would rotate that clue. Is this mimic value 4, 5, or 6? This would say no, or the check mark would say yes, it is. So the black number here will show how many points would be scored if we correctly deduce the value of this mimic. Now, we can also pin clues to this web right here. So if we pin this clue here, then whatever's on the web applies to both adjacent mimics. So our opponent would rotate this. Is the sum of these two cards between 6 and 8 to yes or no? So the other way to score is by maturing our own mimics. And so sometimes we might even pin clues on ourselves. So let's say if we had these two clues here pinned, this is true. So if we had these two clues pinned, we have a total of 6 points if our opponent scores this mimic. Now, if we can avoid being exposed, and if we can get more points pinned to our mimic here, we have 4, 5, 6. This is a total of 10 points. That's how you reach maturity. So if there's 10 points attached to this mimic and our opponent is not able to deduce its value, then we actually score it ourselves and the mimic escapes. So it's important to know the possible values of these mimic cards. So as part of setup, randomly we chose 6 mimics numbered 1 through 6. The colors are a little bit random here, but it's important to know that there can only be one of each color. So if the yellow 6 is out of the game, then are in the action pool here, then we know that our opponent couldn't have the yellow 6. They might have a 6, but it would be either blue or red. And so if we pin this clue later, is this mimic blue? And the answer was yes, then we know that it couldn't possibly be a 1 or a 4. Alright, and the game is mostly already set up to play. One of the last parts of setup is deciding the first clue to pin on our opponent. So if we pin this one, is it a 4, 5, or 6? That'll cut the possibilities in half. And let's just say that they pin this. Is this a 3 or 4? And then the answer is yes. And here our opponent is also indicating that this card is a 4, 5, or 6. So now we have to refill the forest floor. So in this game, these clue cards are double-sided. So we're going to deal from the bottom of the deck. All right, one clue here and a clue here. So in this scenario, our opponent is the dealer because they have the clue deck on their side. And so they get first pick from the action pool. All right, so here's our action pool. We have the 6 action cards numbered 1 through 6 in various colors. So the our opponent's going to get first pick. All right, let's say they want to activate this log here because if they put this clue on our mimic here, it would expose it pretty much. So they can pin this clue with this adaptable card, which also lets them guess any number during the guessing phase. So the advantage of being dealer is first pick, but the disadvantage is they only take one card, where we will get to choose the next 2. Right, let's say our first pick is this card here, which on the bottom of the card in the square, the log, that would be the clue that we swap out with our reserve. So we can use this to switch that clue out before it gets pinned to us. And we know our opponent has a 4, 5, or 6 on the right mimic. So let's grab this 4 also. All right, let's say our opponent takes the 1 and the 3 on their turn, and then we're stuck with the 2. Okay, and that ends the drafting phase. So in the programming phase now, we're going to arrange our 3-card hand. Whatever card we put on the left is going to be determine which clue we swap with our reserve. The middle card is the clues that we would pin on our opponent and a power we could optionally use. And the right card would be our guess, or what we think the opponent's mimic is. All right, so let's say we're going to, this will be our guess of 4. Okay. So once both players say they're ready, then we reveal at the same time. So now we're going to, we're in the execute phase. So we're going to execute our programmed actions here from left to right. So starting with the leftmost card, we chose to swap a log out with our reserve, and our opponent is swapping a flower with their reserve. So in this phase, or in this step, the dealer is going to go first. Now we swap out that log. We anticipated our opponent would be pinning that log on us, but that's not what they played. But oh well, let's see what happens. Right, so the next phase is the pinning phase. So this is simultaneous. So we chose logs and our opponent chose mushrooms. So every log and mushroom here on the forest floor is going to get pinned to the closest web or closest mimic. Now, both players will evaluate the clues, and here we're going to rotate because this is a 3, 4, 5. So our opponent has a lot of information about our hidden mimics now. And our opponent is doing the same evaluation. Now our opponent has a selected power card here, which is after the step B pin, they would score bounty on any clues returned from their web. So every time a clue or gets added to a web, you have to check if there's more than two, the oldest gets returned. Obviously, that won't happen in this round, so that card doesn't really have an effect until after a few rounds of play. Also, those effects on cards are always optional. Now comes the guessing phase. So our rightmost card is a 4, so we're going to apply that guess to either our opponent's left or right mimic. But they're dealer, so they get to, or they have to guess first. So unfortunately for us, they chose a 5. This mimic here, they know is not a 5, so they're going to apply their guess of 5 to our left mimic. So yes, our mimic is exposed, and our opponent's going to score the points that are on the mimic and the adjacent web. So they're going to score 6 points. Now, a 6 would trigger the 6-leg bonus. So if there were any flies remaining in the forest floor, they would add the value of those flies. If they had exposed this mimic here, which is worth 4 plus 4, 8 points, they would have scored any points on spiders that remain on the forest floor. They would have scored the 8-leg bonus. But fortunately for us, there's no flies remaining on the floor, so they're just going to increase their score by 6. So I'm going to set their growth at 11. And the mimic here gets moved to the collected jar. This detached clue gets returned to the top of the clue deck. And the web is sticky, so clues stay on the web. The web has a max capacity of 2 clues. All right, so now is our guessing step. Here we chose the 4 as our number to guess. We can apply it here to the mimic on the right side and see if we were right. And yes, we were correct. So we're going to score just the 2 points, the 1 point that was on the mimic, and plus the 1 point that was on the web. Okay, and then this mimic's gonna get put in the collection jar. This clue's going back to the top of the clue deck, and this clue stays here because the web is sticky. All right, and we also had your guessing power. Um, if the base points that we scored was either 6 for the 6-leg bonus or 8 for the 8 leg bonus, we would have gotten an extra 4 points. But unfortunately, we didn't score that many points this round. So that was the end of the guessing step and the end of the execute phase. So we're going to return all the action cards to the action pool. And we're going to refill mimics here. So our opponent's going to get a new number here. And we're going to get a new number here. And any clues that are on the web are going to get refactored. The sum of our opponent's 2 cards is also between 6 and 8. So we just exposed a 4 on this side, and so we know this was either a 2, 3, or 4 over here because the sum is between 6 and 8. So a little bit more information. So in the cleanup phase, the deal is going to pass to us, so we get the clue deck, and then we're going to deal from the bottom. So I'm flipping the deck over. I refill from our web spot, and then just move clockwise around the board. Now we've gone through a whole round, so that was the drafting phase, programming phase. And the execution phase had 3 steps: swapping a clue, pinning clues, and guessing. And then we did the cleanup phase. So the rounds should be pretty quick. All right, so it was pretty, our opponent probably knows this is a 3 here, if I remember correctly. So we get first pick, we're going to take that 3 off the board. And that also will let us swap a leaf with this log here. And then maybe we're planning on pinning log clues, which would be good for this total here, because if we pin this log onto the web, this mimic would be worth base points of 8, which potentially could score us the 8-leg bonus, and we would add up any spider points remaining on the forest floor. So that's the plan, is to protect ourselves by grabbing this 3, and then get one of the log activating action cards. So let's see what happens here. I'm going to grab this, and then our opponent's going to grab 2 cards. Okay. They took what we wanted, so let's see what other plan we can formulate. All right, so we're going to grab this card to activate leaves instead and just get that 1 point for skipping our swap step this round. We're going to take this card and leave our opponent this last card they have to take. Right, so looking at our hand and knowing what our opponent took, they could swap their flower in somewhere on our side of the board, so I don't think it's safe to play the flower card. So let's just program our hand this way. once we're ready, we reveal at the same time. Actually, before the reveal, we had to either take the +1 growth, announcing to our opponent that we're skipping the swap step this round, but uh, it's optional, so we decided not to use that. All right, let's see what happens. And the first step is swapping, so we both chose to swap a leaf. So I have to swap first. I could swap here. I'm going to switch these two here. Now our opponent has no choice. They have to swap with this leaf that's left on the board. So that was step A of execution, swap. Now we're on step B, simultaneously pinning clues. There's no leaves left on the board, so we're not pinning any leaf clues, but we anticipated that our opponent would be pinning logs, so we're actually pinning 2 clues on them, and they're pinning 1 clue on us. So let's pin here, here, and here, and then both players evaluate the clues at the same time. The final step of the execution phase, we're going to apply this 6 to either the left or the right. I think last round we figured out that the mimic here on the left could only be a 2, 3, or 4. So we're going to apply our 6 here. And we are incorrect. Now our opponent would apply this 1 to one of our mimics, but they have the adaptable power. They can change their guess. So they know that we're holding a 3, and our 3 is going to be exposed. So they're going to score the 10 points here, but the way the forest floor was manipulated, we avoided having exactly 8 points here, which would have given them like a huge bonus with all these spiders on the board. So we drop this guy in the jar, and our opponent gets 10 points. They'll be at 21. So this clue goes back to the top of the deck. That is the end of the execution phase. So now we're just in cleanup. Going to return our action cards to the action pool. Going to pass the clue deck to our opponent. They're the new dealer. So they'll refill, starting from their web. Oops, I forgot to deal from the bottom here. So they'll refill from their web clockwise. We draw a new mimic card and refactor these web clues. So these 2 clues combined are not, they don't add up to between 6 and 8, and then they are within plus or minus 2 of each other, so that stays the same. And that's the end of the round. So I'm going to leave our video at this point. I hope you try my game online. I do have some printable files. Those links will be down below. And thanks for watching.